Welcome back to Walking with the Chosen. I'm your host, Shay Keith. On today's episode, I'm interviewing Julie Molina. Julie works for The Chosen. She was hired by Dallas Jenkins and Daryl Eves to be their executive assistant a few years ago, and she has worked her way up the corporate ladder at The Chosen. Julie shares a fantastic story about how the show moved her in her life and how she has walked out on faith to continue to be with this show. It's amazing. She has a great story to share, and I really loved her storytelling. She really helps me see that I just need to have faith and just trust whatever God is doing. It's really amazing. I can't wait to get in this interview. So let's get started. By the show. Welcome, Julie, to the podcast.
Hi, Shay. Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Daryl speaks fairly highly of you, so I'm curious to find out what makes Julie tick. Why is she so exciting?
Oh my goodness.
So tell us a little bit about, just tell us your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to share a little bit about my walk with The Chosen. I actually came across the show back in 2019. When we actually only had the first 4 episodes of season 1. So season 1 wasn't even fully out just yet. Once the first time I saw it and was just really impacted by the show and really impacted by the stories, the way in which it was being told. And I'm pretty energetic and loud and passionate just by nature, and that's just how I am. I'm Colombian, so it's in my blood. And so I saw this, and it was one of these things where I could not be super loud and passionate about it. Like, I couldn't hold it in. So I immediately started just talking to everybody about it, sharing about it, using it in Bible study groups I used to do young adult ministry at that time, and just really wanting to get people really involved with it. So I started really, I like to say that my story with The Chosen starts as just like a crazy number one fan. I was just like crazy fan. I felt that people needed to see it, and I felt that people needed to experience it. And then from there going on, I started really following the social media. I got involved with the fan club and all of these things, and was spending quite a bit of time. I was that obsessive, like intense, like crazy person that wouldn't shut up about it. And in time, I saw an opportunity. So I started just really working on it on social media, just as a fan, just helping share about it, helping answer questions, because I would see how Dallas would respond to questions. So I would start answering questions for other people and just really doing whatever I could at the time. I'm known to I'm known to have like all of our gear, or what we call our gifts. So I Monday through Friday, like Monday through Saturday, really. I only sometimes don't wear them for church on Sunday. Other than that, you'll catch me in my chosen gear. And so I started, I will tag and tell people, oh, buy the t-shirts and all the good stuff. And through that, and through doing that, I saw an opportunity to actually come and work part-time with The Chosen on their social media accounts. And it was one of these things, Shay, where I wish I could tell you that I saw the post and I stopped and I thought about it and I prayed about it, and I'm like, Lord, would you like me to do this, or what do you want? Like, that was not me. That was not me.
Yeah.
I saw the post and I immediately went. I did not think about it. I did not pray about it. I just like went crazy.
Yeah.
And ended up being interviewed for it. And it was funny because at the time, there was an associate producer that interviewed me. And he literally goes to me, he's like, oh, it's nice to put, a face to a name at Smiling Jules. He knew my handle. Like, that is how crazy, how much like crazy tags I would do, to the point that he actually knew my handle. And I said, well, this is either just like the nerdiest, and he's just going to think I'm insane and I am such a geek, or he's going to give me the job because he knows me. So one of the two. And so that's how and needless to say, I got the job. So that's how I got started, introduced, into the actual chosen team. Um, but I started working part-time, helping with social media on the social media team part-time because I still had what I call my real job, my real career, what
Mhm.
I went to school for, my big girl job. And so that's how I started. I started worked my way in there
Uh-huh.
as a part-timer.
Yeah. So it was kind of your passion project. That's what my podcast is for me. It's like I have my day job and then I have this because I enjoy The Chosen so much. So that sounds like kind of what it was for you too, right?
That's exactly right. That's a good way to describe it.
So before you started watching The Chosen, you were already going to church. You'd already, believed in God and Jesus and all that stuff. You just found The Chosen just took you a step further and you just loved it. Is that what it was?
That's right. Yeah, I did know Jesus already. Had Was working actively in ministry. Was learning more about him. But I think that regardless of how long we are in ministry or how long we are, in our walk with Christ, that we can always know him better. We can
Mhm,
always know him deeper. There's always more of that, mystery that is God, our Abba Father, the Holy Spirit, Jesus. There's always more to know.
mhm,
And so I did know, I was already Christian, as you would say. But I think that as I was watching The Chosen, it it did that for me, where it helped me get to one step deeper.
mhm,
It helped me go a little bit further into some of the gospel stories, right? That we read them on paper, and we even, I'm not a creative person, right? So we're my big girl job, my real job, as I called it, I was an auditor, okay, for my entire career, almost 10 years, as a processes and procedures compliance governance auditor. Very black and white person, right?
uh-huh.
Very not very creative.
Yeah, I get
um,
that.
and so for people, for some people, it's hard to read the gospel stories, um, and visualize them.
Mhm,
It's hard to read them and really get into them. I would read them, as I like to say, it's like 2D, right? Like they're like two-dimensional. I'm reading it, it's on black and white, but watching some of those stories come to life, in as I'm watching The Chosen, it brings me to a completely different depth of the story. It's like I'm going from 2D into 3D. I can almost picture yourself walking along with the disciples, walking
yes.
along, with Jesus, as much more than a story,
Mhm,
but real life.
yeah,
And isn't that what we should all strive for as Christians, is
yeah,
to walk with Jesus, as if he's really is here with us, and he's really an active part of our lives. So that's what watching The Chosen really felt like to me, and I wanted other people to experience that as well.
yeah. I know when I first started watching The Chosen, and once I'd seen it once or twice or who knows how many times, I felt like you
All
said,
count.
like, you're really walking with them, like, you feel like you're a part of their story, and you're going, "Well, I wish I was there with them." Really, I wish I was with Jesus and walking with those guys because just like I'm a little envious of Mary Magdalene, she gets to hang out with them all the time, Now granted, I wouldn't wanna have to sleep on the ground and
Right?
do all the hard stuff they went through, but
Yeah.
you kind of overlook that. But it's just the way The Chosen has brought it to life. Now, when I read the Bible, I have characters to put to the Bible, and it just, it's just like the stories just bounce off the page to me, and it's totally changed how I read the Bible, how I listen at church. The stories that we share with my life group. It really it it's really changed my perspective, and that's why I encourage people to watch it as well. It's like you need to watch it because it's going to change your life, and for some people, it changes their heart as well, like it did for me. But I'm curious. So once you did the social media part, did you get more involved with The Chosen?
Oh yeah, that was just the beginning. There was this crazy testimony of what happened next. So I start working, and again, it was just nights and weekends because I had my day job. But I just had such a hunger to help more, to do more. And at the time we were, literally a startup. There was a handful of employees.
Mhm.
And it was just, we were just, everybody's doing the best we can. We're making do. It's one of these situations where you wear every hat because you're trying to just do the best that you can with what you have. And the more that I did that, the more that I realized, I'm like, wow, this is really impacting people all over the world, right? The more time that you spend on our social media accounts, you really see people's testimonies and how the things that I just saw today, a testimony of somebody saying that their 12-year-old decided to get baptized
Mm.
after watching The Chosen, and it just spoke to her heart in such a way that they decided to give their lives to Jesus. Um, After seeing this over and over again every day, because as a social media, person, that you see that every day, it lit up even more of a fire in my heart. And I did that I did having both jobs for about 7 or 8 months, something like that. And I recall toward the end of that, I was just completely running ragged. I was, because you're working two jobs, and my previous job was very demanding as well. So it was really like having two full-time jobs almost. With working nights and weekends, I had no time off for 7 months. I didn't have a single day off between both jobs, and I was so burnt out, and I was so just kind of desperate, because I'm thinking, God, The Chosen is obviously a passion. It feels like more that it's obviously, it's not a job. It feels like more than that. It's more of a part of my purpose. I am, I'm an evangelist. I like to share about God. I like to share about Jesus with everybody that I can. And I'm like, I know this is part of what you have called me to do. Um, but obviously I have a career, right? And you're thinking, I went to school for this. I literally, this is what my entire life has been walking towards. And when you're in that corporate structure, there's a very clear corporate ladder, right? There's a clear direction, and where you're going, and there's security that comes along with that.
Yeah.
Not only in benefits and in paycheck, but there's job security. And that, at least in that specific industry, that you're always going to be able to be on that ladder. And on the other hand, The Chosen, and I love it, and it's my passion. But I physically cannot go on doing both of these. It's physically not possible. So I get to the point where I'm like, okay, God, something's got to give. And I remember saying that very specifically. God, something's got to give. I don't want to give away my passion, but this is my livelihood, and obviously my paycheck and everything. So, help me figure this out, and help me make decisions that are going to be what you want for me, not what I want.
Right.
And God just put it in my heart as clear as daylight. I just felt in my heart. This was in October. I was having these prayers in October, and I heard God say clear as day, just wait until January.
Mm.
Just wait until January. Don't make any decisions right now. Wait until
Wow.
January.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay. Remember I said how I'm like crazy and like
Yeah.
passionate and whatnot? I'm like, okay, I will take it. I believe it. I receive it. And I started telling everybody about it. Like all my friends and my pastor, and like, oh, something's going to happen in January. Like, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I remember a couple friends even asking me, like, what do you mean? Like, are you looking for a new job? I'm like, nope. Are you online dating? Nope, not doing that.
So you're
Um,
thinking, I'm just walking out on faith right at this point in time, and you were so confident that you were fine with that.
I had no idea how, and people
Wow.
would ask me, what is going to change, or how is something going to change?
Uh-huh.
And I said, I don't know. But I know that God said so. I believe it, and I claim it, and I know that He will do something in January. And then this was in October, and then time progresses, and toward the end, I'm sorry, toward the end of December. So it's now the end of December. I had an email from Adam, who was our COO at the time. And he writes me, he's like, "Hey, do you have time to meet with Dallas and Daryl on the 31st?"
Okay.
And I'm like, first of all, you crazy people, you want me to have a meeting on the 31st? Like, who does that, right?
New Year's Eve, yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what, like, I'm thinking maybe I did, I don't know. I'm thinking I commented incorrectly somewhere,
Yeah,
or I'm in trouble or something. I don't know what is going to happen, but it is really weird to me that they want to meet on New Year's Eve. Like, who does that?
yeah,
Um, of course, I don't say any of those things. And I'm just like, yeah, of course, happy
yeah.
to, sure. Um, and then he sends a meeting invite for the 31st, and it actually says, uh, interview with Dallas and Daryl.
Oh,
And I'm like, okay. So they interviewed me on New Year's Eve for a position that they want to basically at that time, assistant manager. No, sorry, executive assistant. Look at me making things up. I was mixing the two because it was executive assistant and also project manager.
okay.
So I was mixing them. But they needed somebody to basically just help assist them in all the things and also help manage the different processes that we had. We were starting to grow. We're starting to have a lot more to do. We needed somebody to just with the organizational skills to help put a lot of things together and help
Mhm.
keep Dallas and Daryl in communication with the teams and all these other things. And it was New Year's Eve when they interviewed me, and then January 4th, Dallas texts me and says, "Hey, FYI, you can start praying about this because we want to offer you the position." And I'm like, "Homie, little did you know this has been in prayer for months and months." And so and that's how it happened. So I accepted the position, um, put in my 2 weeks at my big girl job, and and then we were in the middle of filming as well. We were filming season 2 at the time. And so they needed me to come, and assist them with all the things on set as well. And so I had to, within a matter of putting in my 2 weeks, I had to pack everything up and basically move to our filming locations for the rest of season 2. So within a matter of that first month of January, I get the offer, signed it, put in my 2 weeks, packed, and I was in Texas on set helping. So
Hmm.
that's how I transitioned from part time to full time, and that's how I really got involved in helping them do a lot of different things.
Wow. What an opportunity. I mean, I can't even imagine because I like you, I've worked with auditors. I'm a computer programmer in my day job. So anytime we write code for the financial industry, you never know when you have an auditor that's going to come in and evaluate everything and make sure you're doing stuff right. So I get that. I totally when you were talking about it's a very black and white kind of job. I mean, programming, same thing. And being the creative person, I don't feel like I'm creative either. So I totally get your journey and it's so cool. And you had to be just praising God and just loving where things were going, I would imagine.
Oh, I was so excited. I really, the best way to say it is I was just really grateful
Mhm,
because it was an answered prayer. I mean, that's really what it was. God knew my heart, and I had always wanted to work in something that would glorify him.
mhm,
But I never had that opportunity, or never again. I did ministry, I work at church, but it was on a volunteer basis. There was never an opportunity to work full time. And so I always had that in the back of my head. So even as, when I first gave my life to Christ, which was, wow, 10 years ago this month.
mhm.
um, even from back then, God knew it was a desire of my heart. And, sometimes it takes a long time. And, sometimes it took those 2.5, 3 months of prayers, and we see things happen, and we see God moving in a way that you're like, oh, you've been orchestrating this all along. He is faithful, and answers our prayers if they are according to his will. So it was definitely a feeling of disbelief excitement, gratitude.
So you went to executive assistant and you did the project management and everything. How long did you do that role?
Oh, I did that for basically almost an entire year, all of 20 or most of 2021. Yeah, 2021.
Mhm,
And then as of the beginning of last year, so January of last year, we as we were having planning meetings for the rest of the year and how we really want to establish the 2022, what we want to focus on and all that, we realized Dallas and Daryl both had in their hearts a big desire to really, really focus on um, the international community. So we felt like there was already, we had made some headway in the American audience, but really had a lot more to do in the international community. And they really had it in their hearts to go for the unreached, right? That was the last year was what we called the year of the unreached.
mhm.
And as part of those conversations that comes up, and I um, just again, it was also it was also a God thing. I'm not trying to over spiritualize this, but this is really what it was. You can't make it up. It was one of those things where somebody actually, a member of the chosen team, had previously, also 3 months before. That's interesting. Um, had prophesied to me, had like really spoken over my life, and said, you know, you're gonna be working to work to spread the chosen among the nations. You know,
Hmm.
not in the states, but in the nations. And I was like, that's interesting. And you know, I don't know how Dallas and Daryl's assistant is gonna do that, but okay. Um, I'm like, I mean, again, I'll receive it. Have always had a heart for the nations. Matter of fact, I always thought that when God called me to full time ministry, I always thought it was going to be mission work because I've always been called. I have felt this passion for the nation. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay. I receive it. I don't know how or when, but yeah, sure. Um, you know, hold that in the back of my head. And then we fast forward to these conversations, and when they decided, you know, this is an area we didn't have an international team at the time,
Mhm.
and they decided this is an area that we want to invest in this year, and we're going to go ahead and build a team. And I was like, could this be like what's happening? And similar story where you know it was a Holy Spirit thing. I actually didn't even bring it up during that meeting, and somebody else brought it up, and they were like, "How about Julie for that?" And I was like, "Yes, yes." It was exactly like I was like, I almost broke my neck. I'm like, "Where is it?" And then I asked her later on, like, Where did that come from?" And she was like, "It was I have no idea. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why I said it. I just could see you doing that." And so I was like, "Yep, I'll volunteer for that." And it kind of went on from there. That's how I transitioned to the international team, which is where I'm at now. And my official role now is regional director for the Americas. So, really, really focusing on bringing the full chosen experience to the Spanish and Portuguese audiences. That includes, you know, everything from Central South America, Spain, Portugal, Brazil, obviously, large population there that really loves the show. And so I'm working now to establish the processes and procedures to really bring the show in the best quality way into these countries, and really make sure that they get to experience that same thing that you experienced when you first saw it and that I experienced when I first saw it. Um, I'm from there. I'm Colombian, so it's a big, you know, big passion to know that I can do something to help these, you know, these people and all over the continent really to watch the show and experience it.
So do you speak multiple languages then? Does that make your life a little easier, I'm assuming?
Yes, I speak Spanish and Portuguese.
Okay.
So
That
that
helps.
does help. Yes, that does help. Helps my assignment.
Yeah. I know I have a lot of friends from India, thanks
Mhm.
to a company I worked with years ago when I was in the process of losing weight. And I've been trying to, I talk about The Chosen a lot now on my social media. And I actually have a few friends in India. It's taken a lot to get them to watch it, but they're starting to. And I love to see this take off in India. So I'm hoping that you guys have an outreach program there at some point in time because I'm trying.
Oh, Shay, we are trying as well. The way that we are planning out the international team is it's by regions, right? So we're going to have, at least for now, as we're starting, because as you can imagine, taking on, this kind of assignment is not something that you do lightly, and you don't do it overnight.
Right.
So it's going to be a lot of work throughout the next few years to really accomplish it. But the way that we have started thinking about it is by regions. And so, we're focused on the Spanish speaking region, so the Americas. That's where I am focused. And then we have somebody that's going to be focusing on Europe and Middle Eastern areas and all that. And then eventually we'll have somebody as well to focus on Asia and the Pacific nations and whatnot. So the idea and the hope is definitely to get to everybody. It's
Mhm.
just it's a lot to stand up, and it's a lot to put before God, and have him kind of guide us and lead the way into, how we even accomplish it, because it's not an easy task.
So, what have you seen going through all this, working with The Chosen and the team? I'm sure, like you said before, when you're in the social media side, you saw a lot of messages come through. Has there been anything that you can think of? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but is there anything you could think of some amazing story that just melted your face off because, these people are writing to you and sharing their heart?
Oh yeah, honestly, there's quite a few. It's interesting when you read the people's testimonies, how they really can impact you as well. I think one that's a really short one, but it's one of my absolute favorite comments we've ever received. Um, believe it or not, it was from a Satanist.
Oh, wow.
I know. And this is why it's like one of my favorite ones. He commented and said, I am from the church of what is it, Luciferian
Mhm.
church.
Okay.
Um, so I don't believe, what you got, what the show is about. But man, this is a really good show.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, at that moment we still did season 3 was not out yet. And he's like, I really I just can't wait for season 3 to come out. You guys, congratulations, you're making a really good show. And I'm like, yes, yes. Um, because it really proves, Shay, one of the things that we've said about the Chosen is that we really want people to meet the authentic Jesus through this
Mm,
show, right? But we are not a church. We are not a religion. We are not a denomination, right? We are a TV show. And that is actually amazing because it is able to bring in people that would never normally go to a church,
right,
right? A Luciferian is not going to be found at a Christian church on Sundays.
right,
He's not going to be found, reading the Bible and praying to Jesus. But this is a creative method where he's like, "Oh, this isn't church, but it's a cool piece of, our art. It's cinema. It is quality enough that where I can spend my time watching it, even though I don't believe in it, but I'm gonna go ahead and spend the time watching it." And it opens the doors for people that would normally never be open to hear about Jesus,
right.
that would never have even wanted to know a Jesus deeper. But this is helping them to do that. And, what happens after that is completely up to the Holy Spirit, right? I'm like, I tell him, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, man, you think, but you don't know. You don't know what's happening. um,
Exactly.
and that's what we do, right? We say a lot in the show that we bring our loaves and fish, and
Mhm,
then we watch God do the multiplication. The
mhm.
miracle is not up to us, right? The multiplication is not up to us. Um, And so it's not up to us to convince or convert or it's just we're just providing the loaves and fish, and it's just giving the opportunity for somebody like that to even be
Mhm.
curious about it. And I would love to know come season 7 what this person thinks.
I have to tell you, and Daryl and I talked about this briefly too. Season 6, I know what's gonna happen, and, I mean, obviously, I don't know the details of how they're gonna portray it, and we've all speculated, like, my family, we've talked about it, and they're like, "Are they gonna go as deep as The Passion when, the Mel Gibson version?" And then we thought, "Well, maybe The Chosen's just going to talk about the crucifixion from the chosen, from the disciple standpoint, and maybe not show all the horrible I don't know, because it's gonna be so hard. We love all the characters. We're so invested in the story, and for people like that don't believe yet, I don't know how you couldn't after you watch. I just think it's just gonna be, our brains are gonna be blown.
I think we're gonna need some sort of, like, chosen anonymous group to, like, recover, like, trauma healing. I
Yeah.
don't know what we're gonna need because after season 6, I think a lot of people are really gonna be wrecked.
Yes.
I mean, I know I am. So and
Yeah.
I don't know those details.
Mhm.
I try to stay away from the script. I even if, it comes across, I'm like, I don't wanna know. I don't wanna know the details because, um
You wanna watch it with everybody else, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I tell Dallas, I'm like, you know how I started. I'm a fan first, your employee second. So need to keep the fandom there. I need to keep it at
Yeah.
that for me. So I think it's gonna be so I don't know the details of it. I don't want to know the details, but I know it's gonna be quite difficult and also quite beautiful, which I think pretty much it's a good way to describe the cross.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you part of the feeding of the 5,000?
Yes, I was there. I was not in the crowd, but I was there helping, making sure. So it was a scorching hot day. It was
Mm,
so hot. And so we were there volunteering and making sure that we could get waters to
mm.
people, that people felt comfortable, that if they didn't feel comfortable, we can get them a ride back. So I was doing all like, behind the scenes stuff, not in the actual shot. But yeah, it was a sight to behold for sure.
I was so mad at myself. I was kicking myself, like, "Why didn't I donate the money for that?" I would have loved to been part of that, even the heat and everything, just to be part of that story and watching these guys act out everything in front of you, and, I saw one of the actors, I think it was Shahar, talking about how much the people there were actors themselves and how well they respected all of the different actors that were performing that day, and they didn't come on like fans, which I'm sure they still had some of that.
Mhm.
I can't imagine. I mean, you got 5,000 fans sitting right in front of you. How do they not, go crazy? But, it however those guys put it together between Dallas and all the actors, and it just everything just always comes together in such an amazing story. And when I saw the behind the scenes of the last episode, Dallas was like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have told everybody how we did those scenes." It still was cool to me. Of course, I'm a geek, I'm a nerd. But just to see
Yeah.
how it all how they did film it, and then how they turned it into such an amazing scene, which I was not expecting that scene at the movie theater. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh, they did that scene." I'm trying not to say it
Mhm.
in case nobody's seen that yet.
Yeah. Spoiler warnings.
Yeah, exactly. But gosh, this show is just so amazing, and I'm jealous you get to be so behind the scenes with all this. It's gotta be so much fun, and being a super fan like you, I totally get it.
Yeah. I love that I can maintain, that passion for it. That's
Mhm.
it is to
It's
your
not
point,
just a
it is
job.
special. Exactly. Yeah, it is
Yeah,
special to have a job where you're not just getting a paycheck, but
yeah.
you genuinely are having to walk out your faith on a regular basis, right? Like when I first came over, one of my questions for Dallas was what does the future look like with the chosen? Because again, I'm coming from a corporate career where I could
Yeah,
tell you where my future was every year. The promotion scales, you know where you're going. But with the chosen, we don't know where we're going. God
yeah.
keeps us. Amanda Jenkins, Dallas's wife, has a term for it. She says it's the mana program.
Mm.
Every day we get what we need for that one day, but we don't get enough for tomorrow. So we don't know, how that's going to play out. And I remember he was very, very gracious in explaining that. He's like, well, it's obviously our intent to continue, but this is crowdfunded, right?
Mhm,
This is a show that is very, very different from anything else that has been produced in Hollywood, even other Christian shows. It's just
mhm,
this is very, very different. This is crowdfunded, and we don't have a big studio writing us a check, right? So every every season that we commit to doing is a step of faith. We don't know if the
mhm.
money is going to come in. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if we're going to plan to do feeding of the 5,000, but it's 100 degrees outside. And then, or when we did Sermon on the Mount and it was freezing, and it was literally like we were afraid people were going to get hypothermia. It was so cold. We don't know, we don't know what it's going to bring. So
Mhm.
every season, I mean, really every day could bring something different. And it's walking in that faith of knowing that even if The Chosen was over today, even if we can't produce season 4, we know that the 3 seasons that exist so far, have impacted millions of lives,
Mhm.
and some of those lives to the degree of literally, bringing them from darkness to light and to into the kingdom of God. Y That's there's no paycheck, right? Like, that's something that you walk away and you're like, "Man, that I can definitely have the fire for this job." Right? It feels very humbling and very special.
Absolutely. So since you've been behind the scenes, are there people that you know that work in the crew or actors that they still don't believe even after 3 seasons in?
Yeah, there are. To be honest with you, there are. We do not ever, ask them. We
Mhm.
don't get into it's not a requirement to work for the chosen that you be a believer, which is part of the beauty, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we don't, it's not a requirement. We don't ask them, but I do know, for a fact that some have different relationships with Jesus or with what they believe about Jesus. And it's all over the spectrum. There's everything from not believing at all to being very devout. And I think that ultimately we don't know what God is doing in each person's heart. We
Right.
just, we make the best show that we can. Obviously, Dallas and the writers write the best story that they can. And these actors, as they are bringing these characters to life and as they are doing the research and as, the crew that is there when they uh, I didn't know this because I've never been in this field, but one scene makes requires many takes,
Mhm.
and so they have to even the camera crew, everybody has to watch the same words being spoken multiple times, and so you have to think to yourself, right? That the Bible says that His word will not come back void,
Mhm.
and so you have to think to yourself, something's going to happen in their hearts, regardless of what their current walk is. It's just not, our job to try to get that information out of them or to try to push them into anything. We're very respectful of
Right.
all of that. We don't usually really talk about that with them, and just are trusting that they bring their best acting skills, and that is all that we can ask
Right.
for.
Has there been anybody, not just actors, but anybody that's involved that have said, "This show has changed my life. I'm so glad I'm part of it"?
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Multiple people in either the cast or crew, even our employees.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I think it would be hard to see this every day and not, I mean, obviously, it's still a job for these people, watching, editing, recording, every little piece that goes into it, setting up a set. That's a job, right? They
Mhm.
know that's for a greater thing, but to go back and watch the completed project when they, especially when they have it up on the big screen and you see the music they put with it. I'm a music person.
Yeah.
I love music, but it just moves me so much sometimes when that music kicks on. That's when my tears usually start. This, I don't know, like this is an important scene.
Mhm.
But everything about it is done so well, and I don't know, their heart to me, whether they are believers or not, they just have the right heart to produce such a wonderful piece of art. because that's really, what it is. And of course, Dallas writing these and his other writers that are involved, I love how they make the story. Sometimes they explain the gospels in a way that it's like, oh, that's what this means. Even though the story around it might be kind of made up because we don't know what happened to a lot of the disciples, but it's just interesting how it turns out like these light bulb moments and like, oh, that finally makes sense. And I know that's happened
Mhm.
a couple times in season 3 for me that it really just, ugh, I don't know. I can't say enough about it.
Yeah, no, it ties things together in a way that can really help us to see things from a different perspective.
Mhm,
And I think that, that's why that's part of why a lot of people um, have felt that it's so impactful to their lives, because it's something made in a way that is not like anything we've seen before. It's
mhm.
not like like we say, it's not your grandma's Jesus show, right? It's not. It's so refreshing, and so
Yeah.
we hear that a lot from people.
I'm excited to see where everything goes because I don't know if you've heard about the revival that's going on in Asbury, Kentucky
Yeah,
right now, and
yes.
I've heard about some other ones, and it's like, okay, first we get The Chosen, and this
Mhm.
show started to take off, and I heard Dallas recently to say that that first year they didn't know what was going to happen, how it was going to grow, and then the second year got better, and the third, I mean, it just seems like we're craving this, we need it. And then you hear about this revival. I got Jesus Revolution coming out next week, which I personally have friends that were living in California back during that time. They've told me lots about it before we even knew that movie was coming out. And I just feel like, this might be the start of something.
Yep. I agree with you, Shay. I'm telling you. And we
Yeah.
hear it, we hear from a lot of the audience that they just feel that this is different.
Mhm.
And again, we always tend to be very careful with that association, right? Because we tend to say we're just leading people to Jesus.
Mhm.
We don't replace the Bible. We don't replace, we would never claim that we're causing revival. Like
Right.
we don't
Right.
claim that. Um, but God does use all things for his good, right? And for
Mhm.
his purpose. And so it's humbling. We'll continue to take it day at a time. But there's definitely a sense that we know what we're doing is bigger than us. And bigger than anything that each of us individually that work here could have accomplished together. But God has orchestrated and put together a team, where most people from the chosen team, most people that you speak to, um, most of them have a story like mine, like miraculous. That doesn't make sense. Like, what is an accounting student and auditor of 10 years doing, working on a TV show, like distributing it to Latin America? Like, it's things that like do not make sense. But in God's way, he has orchestrated this group of people, and we know that, we walk with that knowledge of knowing that it's something bigger than us.
So where do you think this all ends for you someday? You just gonna keep walking with the chosen or, being part of the chosen itself, and then at the end, see where Dallas goes to the next show and just keep growing with him? Is that your hope and dream?
Girl, I have no idea. I have no idea. Um, I will tell you this: working with the chosen, um, it's not only, I know I've been talking and focusing a lot on how we impact other people, which is
Mhm,
true and it's
mhm,
important. But it's not only how it impacts other people; it's also about how it impacts us,
mhm,
the people that are involved in it. That Amanda said about season 3, and it when she said it, like the words coming out of her mouth, I started crying because it was so true. She said, "We don't get to escape the lessons that we're trying to portray for millions of people."
mhm,
So those things that you see on the screen, those hardships, that pain, like that scene with in the second episode with little James and John and
such a good
Jesus's
episode.
conversation about pain and healing. We don't get to walk away and make that show without going through that fire ourselves within, like, the employees, the employees' family members within the chosen. So I say all of that to say that it has changed my life personally, and part of the way that it changes my life on a daily basis is that faith, is that trust. I have no idea. If you would have asked me this 3 years ago, and I would have given you a plan. This is my 5-year plan, my 8-year plan, my 10-year plan. This is, where I retire and how I get there. And everything was mapped out. And now it's not. I genuinely do not know. Um, Again, I mean, even the Chosen itself, nothing is guaranteed that we're gonna make it to 7 seasons. It's not
Mhm.
guaranteed. So, it's a walk of faith knowing that it's really I'm bringing the best that I can to this, and God will take care of the rest for me. And when wherever that walk with the Chosen ends, whether it's all the way to season 7, whether it ends tomorrow, I walk confident in the faith that, God is in control. He knows what the plans are, and his plans for me and for each of us are better than anything you could have found in that 5-year plan. What God has is better. So I hope, of course, we can go all the way through season 7. And if Dallas makes more projects, obviously I would be by his side helping as well. Anything that Dallas and Daryl do, I would love to be a part of, but nothing's guaranteed.
Right, right, and I would be very surprised if you guys don't make it through season 7 because I know the people that I've got to watch the show, yeah, we're
I
like,
hope so.
"Ah!" We would probably go crazy. We'd be like, "No, you cannot cancel this show."
I know. No, it would be hard. No, we would all go crazy.
Yeah,
And obviously we plan and we hope for that. We do
right,
plan for that.
of
We
course.
are planning for that.
Just gotta get those contributions that keep coming in, right?
Yep, we need to keep getting those donations, and more than that, just continuing to work through the difficulties that each season brings. Because as each season progresses, we are not only getting bigger and reaching more people, which is the awesome part, of
Mhm,
course, but as you know, everything as it gets bigger, it also gets more complicated.
right.
And so every season so far has brought its own challenges and has been harder than the last. I was talking to Dallas the other day, and he said, and they're writing and getting ready for season 4, pre-production, all these things. And he's like, I feel like we just got through praying about season 3. And he's like, oh no, season 3 is hard so far. It's been hard. And I'm like, oh no. Like we just finished talking about praying about season 3. Now we got to pray about season 4. It doesn't stop.
Uh-huh,
And so, there's a lot of things that obviously it's not just the donations, there's a lot of other things, a lot of other complications that could happen. So we stay very humbled before the Lord, that He is the one leading the way. And we stay very active in planning everything and trying to make everything happen. And we stay very close to God in prayer. We have a weekly prayer meeting that's optional for anybody in the Chosen. And we lift all these things up to the Lord and continue weekly every single time, continue to remind him that this is not necessarily our project. It's really his. So that's the hope is definitely to continue to get to season 7.
well, and maybe part of it, maybe it is gonna keep getting harder because you're gonna be heading into a hard season, we all know it, and maybe there's a reason for it, you know? It's partly to harden I don't know, not harden our hearts, but, just make you guys stronger because you're gonna have to push through to the end, and it's we're all waiting. We'll be rooting
Yeah.
you guys on.
And as much as we realize that it's just a TV show, we also do know that there is opposition.
Yeah,
There are a lot of people that are being reached through this show, and obviously there's opposition as well as there is blessing. And so obviously there's more blessing, and we trust in God to continue it, but it's not without our own trials that we have to go through. So
right, and I forgot to even bring that up during this interview, I know we need to probably wrap up here, but what has there been a lot of pushback from people? I see comments sometimes from people that are like, "Oh, don't watch that show. It's the worst thing ever." And I get so tired of Christians pulling each other apart. But do you guys get a lot of, I don't know, hate mail or things like that?
we do, girl. We do. We get everything from negative comments to there's people like there's YouTubers that have made full entire videos about, how we are just either we're Illuminati or we are they've even called Dallas the devil, or we're leading people astray. We are non-biblical. I mean, everything under this. At this point, I think we've heard everything under the sun. And so we do get that. We do get opposition. But the way I think part of what has made The Chosen what it is, like part of our brand, is that we are disruptive. You know,
Mhm.
we do things differently. We do things that maybe have never been seen before. And part of that, in being disruptive, part of that is the way in which we engage with that negative criticism,
Mhm.
right? The way in which we receive it. And to be honest, we don't give it a lot of weight. We don't Sometimes we don't even like comment back to a lot of those things. We just let people do what they do. We always say the show is not for everybody.
Mhm.
And, we even sometimes even poke fun a little bit at it. And I don't know if you've noticed on our social media pages, we will sometimes, put because some of them are so crazy that it crosses the line between criticism and it just becomes a joke.
Mhm.
And so, sometimes people are thinking that they're criticizing us, and it's just funny. So we will post it and just make a snarky, it's part of the show is to be snarky, to be sarcastic, to be authentic. Like that is authentic to who Dallas and Daryl are. And that's, the vision that they have. So they'll just make fun of it, or they'll make a snarky remark. And so, that's the best thing we can do with the criticism. So
That's gotta be tough. You have to have a thick skin, especially on YouTube and reading comments and things like that, and that's one of my biggest fears, actually.
it,
So I
it
guess
is hard.
you just gotta pull up your big girl pants and just charge on through, huh?
Well, here's what I always think of is one of the verses that has been most important to my walk with the chosen since day one, since
Mhm.
back when I was a part-timer. I joke about it when I was the least of these. Because there was only like 5 employees and I was the only one part-time. So I'm
Oh,
like, I was the
wow.
least of these. Um, but one of the verses that God gave me is Philippians 4:8. And it talks about, it says, brethren, be focused on the things that are true and the things that are pure and the things that are worthy of praise. And that's really what we need to keep our eyes on. And so when we see comments like that, or when we see the YouTube videos, or even, in your case, as your podcast gets off and you really takes off and starts maybe making its way to people that might not think or believe the same things that you do, but need to
Mhm.
hear it. And you start maybe receiving some of those comments. I just, invite you to focus on the things that are true and worthy of praise and the things that are pure and lovely. And and I know what is true about the
Mhm.
chosen. I mean, I've worked with these people hand in hand, right? I've been their assistant. I know their hearts. I know what they're trying to create. Every employee of the chosen, I know where their hearts are. I know where the writers' hearts are. Like, so to me, I focus on the truth.
Mhm.
The truth is that we are making a show because we have a desire. God gave Dallas a vision of how to do this, and we have a desire for people all over the world to meet the authentic Jesus. Period. Hard stop. Like
Mhm.
that is the truth. And so as you're continuing with your podcast, and if you do encounter those moments, I just want to invite you to remember the truth.
Mhm.
Why did you start it? What did God put into your heart as you're doing interviews with people? Why is God having you talk to them? There's always that truth. And what
Mhm.
other people say really, it doesn't really carry weight, because what they're perceiving will change every day based on what scene they saw that day, based on what they felt, based on if they had a fight with their pastor that Sunday morning. Now they hate everybody that has to do with Jesus. Like their perception, and this is true of everything in the world. The world's perceptions of things will change every day, but the truth of what God is doing will not change. And so, just keep that. I just invite you to keep that in mind.
Oh, that was so very well said. And it reminds me of what I just learned in church the last few weeks. We've been talking a lot about 1 John, and we've been talking about putting on the full armor of God. And when you're talking
Mhm,
about the truth, and I'm like, yep, you're
mhm.
speaking what I've been hearing. So I totally get it. And that was amazing. Julie, I know we've talked quite a bit today, and I am so thankful that you are on my show today to tell me, I'll tell my audience about The Chosen and what you've experienced and the people and just everything. It's fun for us that are major fans of the show to get to talk to somebody that's in the show, involved with everything. So thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything you would like to say, maybe to encourage people that maybe they're on the fence about, I don't know if I like the show or not. I mean, I think we've covered most of it, but if there's anything that you feel on your heart you would like to say, this would be a great time to share it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, just try it. Just watch the show. Even for people that might be on the fence that think, I don't believe in that, then why would I watch it? I'd venture to say that we probably don't believe in dragons, right?
Mhm.
But a lot of people still watch Game of Thrones.
Right?
You don't right? Like, you don't have to believe it. You don't have to, necessarily agree with us. As a matter of fact, like we said before, there's a lot of people that disagree about a lot of things that, even some of our most hardcore fans will disagree about the way a scene was portrayed, or will disagree about a storyline. You don't have to agree with it. It is a TV show. Just, we encourage you to watch it, to give it an opportunity. And if it's not for you, that's okay. But if you are on the fence about it, just remember that, it is just a TV show. So no harm in trying it, and no harm in checking it out. We don't, I think in society and culture in general, we have this thought that, you either agree with everything or you agree with nothing.
Yeah,
You can still enjoy the show even if you don't agree with parts of it. You can still enjoy the show even if you don't agree with the things that Dallas says. Just take it for what it is. It's not anything other than a good, wholesome, entertaining, historically accurate TV show.
absolutely.
And it happens to be very well made.
Well, Julie,
Not
thank
that
you
I'm
so much.
not biased or anything.
Oh, I get it. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Shay. I love talking to you and spending this time. And I hope that your audience finds it fun.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Julie, for being part of Walking with the Chosen. Your interview was so heartfelt, and I really appreciate you being here. If you would like to be part of Walking with the Chosen and you would like to share your story as to how the Chosen has moved you in your life, you can reach out to me with my email, shey @walkingwiththechosen.com. You can also visit my website, walkingwiththechosen.com, and leave me a voicemail message there if you prefer to send me an audio versus sending me an email. You can leave up to a 2-minute long message there on my website. I'm looking for people that really want to share their heart and not afraid to be on camera. And you just want to help bring people into seeing the chosen and ultimately lead them to God, like how has happened for so many of us. You can also join the Facebook group Walking with the Chosen and join other people who are fans of the Chosen itself. I'm trying to grow that group and I just want to encourage you to check it out. Okay, guys, that's all I have this time. Thank you so much for being here. I know you have lots of other shows that you can watch or listen to and other ways to spend your time. We all have busy lives. So it means a lot to me that you were here with me today to hear Julie's interview. Until next time, keep walking with the chosen.